It took me 10 years out of college to find a stable and credible job as a video editor. I'm fluent in pain. So, hi new people from last video. I'm really thankful for all the support. Like, I'm just kind of winging it and I'm glad it's vibing with y'all, so here I am and I'm gonna keep at it. Anyway, since like half my watchers are now motorsports fans, I'm entertaining the idea of doing some occasional little essays on it in conjunction with the other stuff I'm already doing. Like, sound off in the comments if you're cool with that, and maybe give me some ideas of stuff that you'd like to hear me talk about. I can't promise anything will be quite as deep and heartfelt as that last video, but I can certainly make them interesting. And hey, the more support I get on Patreon and the more I grow this channel, the more videos I'll be able to bust out. So hey, just keep supporting the channel and let's keep it growing, y'all. Also, yeah, I'm a furry. Sorry to disappoint in that regard. This is just how I present my videos. If it bothers you, I'm sorry, that's not on me. However, with that said, I try not to let that bleed too heavily into these little storytime videos. Anyways, onto today's topic. As an example, I've been a video editor for almost 2 decades. September 2026 will be the 20-year anniversary of the first time I edited a video, and yes, this is the video. You can check out that full thing on my archive. It's pretty bad. Windows XP Movie Maker was the GOAT, however. Fuck Vista's version, though. That thing sucked. Glorified slideshow editor, that thing was. Fucking hate that goddamn thing. Hell, it wasn't even until 2011 I even heard the term editing used to describe what I was doing, and it was when I was sharing my MFF 2011 music video with my boyfriend's sister. Beforehand, I usually referred to my stuff as the product, such as music video, AMV, compilation, etc. But that, like, opened up my third eye when I first heard that term used. The funniest thing was, at that point, I was already in college and sought a path to become either an animator or go into computer science. Did I know how to animate? Not really. I made a janky little Flash animation for senior project. Oh, look, it's young me. But I admired good animation, liked drawing, and I just saw myself as a budding creative thanks to my recent introduction to the furry fandom. Now, as for computer science, like, this was just my NPC degree. I think I was just aiming for that because I felt like it was what I was supposed to do, and I rebuilt computers a lot as a teen, so why not go for it, you know? Anyways, in college, as stated before, I learned a lot of the finesse. I already had the knowledge of how nonlinear editing worked, but college taught me some good editing best practices, and of course After Effects, which is an absolute beast to learn by yourself. By the way, fuck Adobe. I make all these videos on free software. Become ungovernable, bitches! In 2014, I graduated with a Certificate of Achievement in Digital Multimedia, which is basically a step below an associate's. If I had obtained 2 more of these, I'd actually have gotten a bachelor's. But I opted to graduate since I was already moving out of the state to Florida. I figured this would be enough to get me into the workforce, so I took it and was optimistic for the future.
Welcome to Radio Recall. I'm also a fox, taking you from the A-list to the shit list. To describe 2013 in music is very difficult.
Around this time, I was working on my show Radio Recall, and I thought, you know, on my own time, I could move down to the Tampa area and get in with a film studio, and it would be a cakewalk. Except for one problem. I lived in Port Richey, Florida, over an hour away from Tampa. So I kind of stagnated for a bit. I was also, like, really afraid to direct shots and lead a team of people. And I just get really bad anxiety when I have to, you know, express my creative vision to a group of people who may not see it, you know. I have a little trouble with that. I've gotten a little better at it, and I just kind of, you know, anybody who's seen me in my zone at a convention making a music video knows, like, I can be kind of spastic, but I have a vision. Like, I'm one of those, like, mad scientist creatives, like, let me cook. As most people without decently well-off parents would understand, I'd lived most of my adult years at this point either working at gas stations or waiting tables while also going to college. And you don't need to be an accountant to understand that balancing life can be a little hard when your hourly wage is 1 digit per hour, even by early 2010 standards. There were some other factors in my life that were dragging down my potential in terms of income and stuff, but I'm just gonna focus on my own struggles. I could write an entire novel based on the experiences of my early 20s, from the constant moves to my complicated long-term relationship. But let's just say it all was extremely unstable and unhealthy. But a constant throughout all this was, I was still editing video. At times I'd take breaks, but I always found my way back to it, even as other hobbies waned and new ones flourished. I knew this was what I wanted to do, but I saw really no path to doing it professionally. And at this point, I was intimidated by what I would have to do to get employed with it. So I often would avoid reading up on things that would teach you how to get employed as an editor, because I just didn't want to know what I lacked. I also didn't seek out advice from friends who were professionals because I didn't want to be told that my real calling isn't good enough. You know, it sucks to find out you're doing everything wrong when you've put so much work into something, right? But TLDR, those advice columns that gave you, you know, the guide of how to do something, usually kind of gave a personal anecdote of what worked for them, kind of like this video is giving you a personal anecdote of what worked for me. But usually those columns involved learning an expensive piece of software, moving to a city, usually in California, self-employing, and or going and getting a bachelor's degree. All of these came down to, I was now in credit card debt already and couldn't give another inch. Okay, so around the end of 2014, I actually contacted a music artist, Matt Hart of the Russian Futurists, to gain permission to a song he'd made called Horseshoe Fortune. In a music video. I actually had showed him as an example of my work because I didn't have a demo reel at this time. My music video of My Starry Destination by Fox & More and Colson Granger, and he was pretty impressed by it. He did say yes, and I started getting people within the family to volunteer as actors for this ambitious project, and it's not been made to this day. I kept stalling, and I just couldn't bring myself to make it. Like I said, this boils down to me having trouble directing, and one of the hang-ups is that the video involves gender transitioning, for which I'd need a very specific set of actors, either male-female doppelgangers or someone who can pass well as the opposite gender, as well as an old man and a young person for a flashback scene. Yes, I have this video planned out in complete detail. Let me know if y'all want to hear the full concept. Maybe we can put it together sometime as a community. The entire strategy with this was essentially make video, profit. This ended up being my entire strategy throughout, almost all of my video endeavors. How the fuck could I make a living doing this so I can get the fuck out of these restaurant and retail jobs and actually make something worth my salt? I occasionally tried out some things for some potential benefit of my film work. See my archive for a couple examples of that, but it wasn't even until 2015 I even learned how to properly use a DSLR camera, as my dad had gifted me a nice little Nikon and some good lenses to go with it. Dad essentially told me, this is for everything we didn't have when you were a kid, go make something with it. So I played with it and all the tools with it. I started shooting random things for potential stock footage I could sell. Sadly, I don't have any of these videos, and it's unfortunate because they actually were really nice. But again, I'd start the engine on a path forward into it, but got cold feet immediately, intimidated by the sheer competition and the fear that I just wasn't good enough. Then in 2016, I elected to let go of editing as a career path. In my head, I didn't know enough and wasn't good enough to get a job using it, and honestly, I just wanted to keep it a hobby. 10 to Go was doing decently, so I figured we'd just leave it at that. Like dance, leave it as something I do for fun when I want to express myself creatively. That's just the way so many things have ended up in my life, except that I'm an NPC, and this is just the way I'm destined to be. Excuse me, but would you like to take a couple of minutes to talk about our saving grace and glory of 2018? It's May. The summer heat is kicking up, and I'm freshly reeling off achieving a milestone with one of my hobbies. Then there's video. You know, I hadn't edited much in a while, apart from maybe a meme here or there. But I hadn't made a con music video in a while, and I gave up on YouTube as a real path forward sometime in early 2017. But little would I know, a visit to Craigslist one evening changed everything. My career trajectory would forever be changed with a simple email. I wasn't sure if I'd actually get a response, but literally 45 minutes after sending the email while I was at work, and I was having just a fucking miserable day, a guy calls me in response, and he wants me to go in sometime later that week to essentially do a working interview. I make a little 1-minute music video as a test, and he loved it. He asked if I'd like to come back for a paid film day out at the shooting range, and whether you like it or not, a gig is a gig. I won't dwell on each individual business for too long so as to protect their anonymity, but I will touch on the experiences I had with each. So we're just going to call the owner Germ, and the business SS. Okay, so imagine the most stereotypical Chad hustle culture type guy, a professional LinkedIn grind set influencer type who gives annoying little hollow tidbits of financial wisdom, a guy with a massive case of action movie protagonist syndrome. He owns 2 businesses. One of them manufactures steel targets for shooting ranges, and the other is an ad agency. And that's the entity I work under. I learned pretty fast that Germ is very disorganized, commits to something 100% only to back out when he loses interest, and doesn't really have the financial means to hire a person full-time. So I work as a subcontractor and work maybe 1 or 2 days a week despite some pushback from me, for a flat $100 per day worked, unless the day was abnormally long. I showed up to open his shop one morning only to realize his electricity for the business is shut off. I showed up another day for him to be completely MIA, not responding to any calls or texts. Also, at one point I found his mugshot, so I guess that's all you really need to know about him. It was hard for me to decide I need to leave because this was the first job in my field I'd found, and who knows how hard it would be to find another, right? It took me 4 years out of school to find this. I can't leave. Working at SS with Germ taught me a lot of stuff I'd end up using in the future, such as working with motion graphics, setting up a podcast center, how to use audio effects. But despite those experiences, I had to look for something else, but I didn't want to leave my field.
Just give me you, just give me you, just give me you. That's what I can do.
So I tried the whole Indeed and Craigslist deep diving again for video editing jobs, and I come across a solar company looking for a video editor. And I send in some examples of my work, and on my way to orientation with Papa John's, I get a call offering a paid working interview. You ever just find yourself in the same room with businessy type people and the owner is preaching a sermon? This is really the only way to describe my employment with Sums. You think working for Germ was complicated? Well, let's talk about Fred and Millie. Fred was the owner of the company, which we will call Sums. Millie, again, no real names are being used here, was the owner of the company I worked under, which we will call DB. DB was its own entity, but almost all the work it did was exclusively for Sums, and we worked in the same building. Yeah, this was so hard to explain to people how this worked. Sums was a door-to-door sales type solar company. Yeah, that's all I really gotta say there. It was really shifty. It tricked people into signing 20+ year contracts to install solar panels on their roof. You know, typical multi-level marketing bullshit. The types of people I encountered working here, oh boy. The sheer amount of privilege and blatant racism and inter-community herephobia of a lot of the guys working here, especially the male half. I don't mean any of that gray area social debate racism. I mean being an apologist for early 19th century white America and saying certain communities had it pretty good back then kind of racism. That's the kind of shit that we had in this place. But when it comes to the work, I enjoyed it. I got paid both well and weekly. Best hourly wage I'd ever made to that point, in fact. And I got to meet one of my best friends here just by us working together. We made a bunch of Instagram videos together. I'll see if she'll let me post them. So this, for all its problems, was my full-time job. I felt pretty good too, because Millie frequently told me I was the better of the 2 video editors at the company, even though I was less experienced in shooting and color correcting. So what happened? I stated in a previous video that if a video agency can pay you full-time, something shady is going on. After a very good 2018 financial year for Sums, Fred boasted that the company had made it and sought out large financial goals in 2019. This was its downfall. Just to clarify a lot of the work, it was often used for the company's social media, either short caption videos featuring motivational speeches. You are listening to my live reaction of just finding this news article about the company. Oh no, this is worse than I thought. Full long-form content such as seminars, compilation, and reel videos to be used in company, customer testimonials, etc. Around May, after a large company seminar, something felt off. Those worries were realized a week later when I heard quite a few of the account managers in the company, as well as the entire staff in Palm Harbor, were laid off. Mind you, these were all independent contractors as well, even the office workers, and we had just literally shot a video at the Palm Harbor location boasting about the Palm Harbor location right before it closed. So for those that don't know, let me explain independent contracting. You may encounter it a lot as a person with a skill set that you are bringing into a company, be it video or graphic arts is a common one. This is also called a 1099, which is the tax form for this. It's used to pay someone who is not an employee who's providing a service to your company, but is not bound to the company. An independent contractor, therefore, is not eligible for the legal benefits of an employee, such as wage and hour laws, FMLA, insurance, paid time off, or workers' comp. You see how a greedy businessman would want to use this one instead, right? Fred did the hiring and firing as he saw fit, scolded workers nonstop, etc., all under the guise of them being employees but coded as subcontractors. Yeah, it was blatant tax evasion. So yeah, folks were getting laid off and it was starting to look pretty bad. The weekly Tuesday morning meetings, which were basically just sermons, we would film were getting less populated. Millie was also kind of lying to us about some stuff. There was one week where the check cashing place actually bounced my paycheck. Yeah, it turns out this too good to be true nice little 9-to-5 workday with good pay was actually too good to be true. As Sums continued to reap the consequences of getting too aggressive on expansion too quickly, Millie had to let us go in September. Me and the other editor, who now I call friend, did come back that next January, directly under Fred, as we couldn't find jobs worth a damn in the meantime, but it was awful. Fred didn't know what the hell he needed us for, so I got my happy ass out of there for good. I guess karma kind of bit me in the ass on this one, to be fair though, because there was a point when I worked at this job when I was so happy and so proud of it that I kind of flaunted my financial stability a little bit, and I was called on it pretty quick, thankfully, by friends. But yeah, this was like a big no-no, and I didn't really know any better because this was the first time I actually made, a living wage. So as good as I had it, I didn't really do the best with it, and it was gone before I knew it. The biggest long-term benefit I got out of this was, apart from a much deeper understanding of editing fundamentals, shooting best practices, and a much better working knowledge of After Effects, I actually started doing film work for some companies on the Zephyr Hills Main Street Strip just through my connections there. Funnily enough, it started with me just talking to the guy that washed Fred's car.
Here in my garage.
It was mostly just some cheap Facebook ads, but this did help me expand my abilities and it networked me with a lot of local businesses. It was fun getting to have a creative hand in helping small businesses and made me a few hundred with each one I made. Pro tip, if you're a decently experienced editor and have a working knowledge of film and you're strapped for cash, try this. Build a demo reel, go to local hole-in-the-wall bars, restaurants, stuff like that, and offer them cheap ad videos, especially if you're already a regular. No equipment? Write the cost of a rental in the invoice. There are camera rental places, you just have to look for them. Actual production houses will charge these small businesses 4 digits for an ad. You could charge $300 or $400 and they'll bite. Of course, price accordingly. If they want you to film like a day in the life vlog or something, or edit a 4-hour seminar into a 15-minute highlight reel, that'll obviously take longer. Just use your best judgment, and this shit looks really good in your reel.
Spending time with you is like lighting the wrong end of my last cigarette.
The owner of this business, we'll call him Andrew, was a cryptozoology fan and also just an unpleasant person to work for. So after Millie let us go, I cold called a bunch of video and ad agencies from the area just to try and land a job quickly since I was officially unemployed and had no backups. I reapplied for my old gas station job, and in the meantime, while that background check process, I picked up a gig working an ice cream parlor for minimum wage. And of course, running Uber Eats where I could. As I've mentioned on this channel before, the end of 2019 and early 2020 were where I really hit rock bottom in terms of my career and my mental state, and this was kind of where it started to crescendo. I went even further into debt just to stay afloat and destroyed my credit in the process. But one of the agencies I was able to get a chance with was DM, run by Andrew. He touts he really wants to be that guy people want to work for. Okay, so the last assignment I got from him. I have to edit these little green screen videos for a realty company. There were like 11 of them. Essentially, it's a bunch of stuff that house sellers have to watch before the show person comes through the home. Pretty standard stuff. But during this time, stupid me, I actually did not know that there was a tool that could be used to sync up audio across 2 different audio sources, such as if you're using a lavalier mic and you have the actual native audio that's embedded in the clip that was recorded by the camera. I did not know there was a one-click option you could do to line them in. That was my bad. So my hours were a little larger than he anticipated for the 11 videos. So that did eat up quite a lot of the logged hours, I'd say half of them, but he undercharged so much that I received over 50% of the profits he made off the project. And I made a couple mistakes in the videos, which I offered to fix for 3, and he said some honestly nasty stuff to me over text. Look, I get it, I messed up, but you were unclear in your instructions. Literally, the dude gave me a fucking lecture in all caps about how I used stock footage of a padlock when the narration said, "Lock your safe and secure your belongings." Fun fact, he's now out of business. Yeah, I'm salty. He discouraged the fuck out of me and made me feel like shit about myself. But hey, karma's a bitch. Skill issue.
Monkey.
Guess what? Not everyone you find as an entry-level video editor with limited experience will be out to screw you. Case in point, Verve Video, a small entity under a guy named Luke. Once again, these are not real names. Luke also owns a dance school where he teaches ballet to all ages. Verve Video is the company under which he uses to produce the DVDs from shows and events that he had a hand in writing the choreography of, to sell back to the parents of the kids in his classes. How I met him was the same way I met Andrew. Called over 4 dozen places listed as video production on Google Maps within a 50-mile radius and asked if they needed editing help. You'd actually be surprised how effective this is if you live in a major metropolitan area. Anyway, so the downside with him was the hourly rate was lower and the work was scarce. Like, he literally needed me a few times a year, most notably during his showings of The Nutcracker. Hey, I got to watch The Nutcracker like 6 times. Love that show now. But I wasn't really helping him with any editing work. This was more hired stagehand stuff for these events, helping with setup and teardown, loading and unloading the trucks with stage pieces, helping him clean up his gymnasium and clean up his dance studio. One time he actually had me rake his lawn when I needed a little extra cash. He was just an all-around good guy. It was more of an odd job, but hey, he did shit right, and I actually admire him. But you could tell the stress of running his businesses and the financial burden was hard on him. But yeah, he was actually the only video guy I stuck with until moving to North Carolina. And it sucked because I actually really liked working for him. He was a really good guy, and I could tell he wanted to bring me on full time if he had the opportunity, the financial means. But unfortunately, the financial burden of running 2 businesses was pretty hard on him, especially during COVID when a lot of people pulled out of dance class. I do hope he's doing okay though.
But you know the chances are so small.
So, Western North Carolina, fun fact, is less populated than the Tampa-Orlando area. I know, crazy idea, right? So instead of there being like 5 or 6 full production houses with dozens of small businesses all around, there's about 10 film-related businesses here, period. And almost all of them are just one person or a married couple doing it all themselves with no real financial justification to hire somebody. And also a lot of these film production studios are the old school film conversion. Like they take your 8mm and convert it to DVD. So for the first 2 years living here, this was the case. I just went back to waiting tables and later got into some manufacturing work just to keep bills paid. And I kind of just did my own thing with film. I mean, I had a lot of other things I was doing at the time, so it wasn't like I give up or anything. It was more of just like I had other things occupying my time. With the exception of making some motion graphic animations for folks, I actually tried to go into business with this, but at this point I've just sworn off Adobe and won't go back. But I made some motion graphic animations as commissions, did some occasional editing work for some furry YouTube channels, and some odds and ends here and there. But whenever I looked for film jobs, there were really no options in my area that didn't require a ton of other skills, like social media management. And when it came to remote work, you want to feel small? Apply as a remote entry-level video editor on Indeed. It's an incredibly hard and competitive field to get into unless you either live in Cali, self-employ, screw yourself with some shady Craigslist ad, help some small businesses a few times a year, or of course, nepotism. Okay, anyway, so I applied at a laminate factory for packaging since it was similar to a job I had just left, and I went in for the interview and it felt very testosterone heavy, to say the least. I'm not a big alpha looking dude, nor do I want to be, it just ain't me. Begrudgingly, and not wanting to kill my car with taxes and Uber Eats as my full-time, I did show up for my orientation. So, you know those little round table icebreakers that hollow corporate suits will make you do during orientation?
Hi there, and welcome to the Business Land Business family. We're so glad you joined us today. We've been so desperate so delighted to meet you. To start, say your name, what department you were hired for, how you heard of us, and 2 fun facts about yourself.
One of my fun facts was I'm a video editor with 17 years of experience. And it just so happened that the correct person was in the room when I said that. Later that day, my HR manager got an email from the head of training and development claiming to be in desperate need of a videographer and editor for company training videos. And it came with actually good regular pay that isn't sleazy or sus. Guys, do not bank on this ever happening to you. This is the equivalent of hitting the career lottery. But always treat those fun facts and orientation as a networking opportunity. You never know what might happen. Now, this position is temporary, but we're in talks right now to have me do the video company-wide and not just for my own plant. Crossing my fingers, knocking on wood. Either way, they like me, and while it's a little soul-sucking to make the same video every day, I have a job that others would kill for, and I appreciate what I do despite it taking 10 years of struggle out of college to get here. Now, while all this was my own experience, I did want to balance this out with a second opinion, so I brought in my friend Amras to give a brief overview of his own experience. So Amras, how did you get into editing and videography, and how long have you been doing it?
So I was one of the slightly less financially literate kids. So I went to a private art school. It's been about 15 years that I've been in video production. Yeah.
Cool. Was videography your main focus and career aspiration, or did you just kind of get into it like it kind of happened?
So that's actually a really great question. I actually went to school at the Corcoran in DC for digital media design, which is a really boring way of saying interactive storytelling. And I actually focused on video game development in school. There was a little bit of film and a little bit of motion attached to that, but my career focus was actually character modeling and rigging animation for video games. But once I finished school, I realized, hey, that's an impossible market to get into, which was really not fun. So I went into the defense industry for a couple of years. I worked for Lockheed Martin for a little while. After a little while, I was like, this blows, and jumped to a company called Living Social. They're part of Groupon now. That was a internet coupon company, basically. And that was my first motion design and animation job, and that's how I got into it.
Did you have any trouble finding a stable job in the industry? Or did you end up being able to get something pretty quick after just like, a not exactly abnormal amount of applications or attempts?
Oh, God, no. It's always been terrible. It's, I think, one of the worst industries for ingress because it's really incestuous. So people who know people get jobs. And the only thing you can do to mitigate that is to network the shit out of yourself. And I mean, you got to be on LinkedIn, you got to be on Production Hub, you got to be anywhere that, I mean, back when 37 Signals was a thing, you had to be on there, Smashing Magazine, all of that. You got to go to in-person mixers, find your local video editors working group or Adobe group, not a shout out to them, but their community is really strong, and go shake hands and meet people. I have gotten more jobs through people that I know than I have through direct applications. And I mean that from every angle. So from freelance to contracts to 9-to-5 office jobs. You gotta network.
That's good advice there, Amras, and I really appreciate your input and having a second perspective on this. I know my way is one way, and I definitely had a different experience than some people might. I just want to get a second perspective on this, but I really appreciate you popping in here and doing this for us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No problem.
Heck yeah, and hey, where can people find you if they want to, come bully you or something?
I'm really only on Blue Sky these days, but I'm amras.me on Blue Sky.
So here's my advice to aspiring video professionals. Whether or not college is an option, ignore college. 1, network with local businesses for experience when you're just getting your feet wet. 2, always say you are a video professional when the chance is presented. You will never know when your next opportunity might be listening. 3, budget allowing, invest in important assets. such as a USB hard drive and a subscription to a royalty-free stock website like Motion Array or Envato Elements. And of course, this is a little bit of a stretch financially, a nice or at least a used DSLR. You can get a decent DSLR for $200 off Craigslist. The USB hard drive and the subscription to royalty-free stock stuff, that's invaluable. Don't even worry about Adobe. I make all these videos using free software. I guess the only thing I haven't replaced yet is After Effects. 4, make a reel. This is the most important thing you can do for yourself when you're looking for a job in video. Most video houses that don't look for a college degree will not ask for a resume. They'll ask for your reel. And hell, unless there's like a marketing aspect attached, don't even worry about jobs that say we require a bachelor's degree in film. Ignore that. Just apply anyway, because I've never been asked for my college degree in an interview. What you see playing, by the way, is my reel. Always put your name and contact on the end. 5, I guess make a LinkedIn and post there infrequently. It's no secret I hate LinkedIn with a burning passion and don't really use it. It's like Facebook for people who brag about their earnings to fast food employees when they get their order wrong. But I did land a few interviews through it, and some employers will require it. 6, take it slow and don't give up. You don't want to burn yourself out, but you also need to know it in your heart what your value is, and that you offer something that someone who's willing to pay you needs. So there you have it, a little bit of weasel wisdom to help you find a job doing whatever it is that floats your boat. Sound off in the comments. Let me know what your experience is in the world of video or just your creative passion in general. Did you have to deal with a bunch of shady ad houses before getting something credible? Are you still looking for a job in the industry? While you're down there, please thumbs up this video and hit the subscribe button. Of course, this video does have AdSense, but that's not going to make much of a dent in the bills now, is it? So if you feel like being an amazing human being and also like seeing these videos 2 days before anyone else, my Patreon link is in the description. With the lowest tier, you get 24 to 48 hour access to all of these and access to a private Telegram server and maybe in the future a Discord server where we can possibly even vote on upcoming videos. You can't do a monthly donation? That's fine, leave a tip. My Ko-Fi and PayPal links are in the description as well. Of course, it's never expected for me to gain any financial support from these, but it's always appreciated, and the more we get, the more often I can justify posting these videos. Hell, maybe down the road I can start doing 2 videos a month on the regular. But anyways, friends, thanks for watching, and take it wheezy.